Hello and welcome. My name is Tom. This is the Enthusiasm Project, Season 8, Episode 10, The End. It is intense. I won't pretend to delay it anymore, except to thank the sponsor of this episode and this season, which before we get started is Riverside.fm. So, again, if you are unfamiliar, if you have been here for 10 episodes and you're still unfamiliar with Riverside.fm, you're saying, hey, Tom, what is that? What is Riverside.fm? Well, let me tell you. Riverside.fm lets you record studio quality audio and video remotely from anywhere with no latency, so you don't have to wait and see regardless of your internet bandwidth. That means you don't have to spend mental bandwidth worrying about your internet bandwidth. Riverside automatically records locally to each participant's computer and then uploads all of that to the cloud, which means your guests don't have to lift a finger, don't have to do anything. I guess they have to lift fingers to log into the call, but otherwise there's no technical commitment on the part of your guests. They just have to sit and wait until they get the little quick notification that says everything uploaded, and they can log out and leave and go do whatever they're going to do, and everything is going to be uploaded in full quality, which is awesome. Individual, isolated audio and video tracks for each person. Those locally recorded files are supported up to 2164K video and 44.1 or 48,000 kilohertz audio. There's also a mobile app to make things easier for you and your guests. They can just use their phone or their tablet and just call in, and you can record right from there, both audio and video. And you can publish and share those recordings immediately. You can just take that raw file and put it up if you want to, like a super quick, no editing workflow. But if you do want to edit, of course, you can take all of those separate audio and video tracks and put them in your editing software of choice. So if that sounds good and you'd like to give Riverside a try, use the link in the description of this episode along with promo code TOM15 for 15% off your subscription. Thank you again very, very much. Now that we're at the end of the season, to Riverside.fm for sponsoring this entire season of the Enthusiasm Project. And speaking of seasons, 'tis the season to reflect. I'm recording this in December, so December to remember, sales event. Anyway, all the car commercials have ruined my brain when it comes to the holidays, but what I thought I would do this season finale is kind of what I did at the end of season 7, which I really liked. My impulse at the end of a season is to try to do something sort of bigger and different and, what's like the biggest topic I can think about or the most intense thing. And last season, what I did instead was sort of give updates on different topics that had come up throughout the season. And I really like that because to me, these episodes are kind of a conversation, especially when I think of, the messages and stuff that I get and I share and go back and forth with people. It's really fun. Like if I record an episode about a topic, I always look forward to, especially Mondays and Tuesdays, because that's when I start getting the most messages. Not that it's like an insane number or anything, but a nice handful of messages from people talking about that week's episode. And we can kind of like keep the discussion going a little bit, which is really fun. And by ending the season, by giving like updates and more info and additional context to stuff that we've talked about, it's like I'm pausing by giving the most up-to-date information possible at the time. And then that can kind of like maybe propel the conversation or at least hold things over until the next season starts. Season 9 I keep wanting to jump to season 10, but this is episode 10. We still got to do a whole season. Season 9 will very, very likely kick off the first Monday in February. That way, there's a little bit of a break, time to work on a couple other projects that I need to work on, and February will be here before you know it. That's what I did this past year, and it worked out really well. So it's been fun to like streamline the podcast workflow, 10 episode seasons, little like month-long breaks in between seasons. I have to tell you, if you're someone who produces a podcast, that has been an absolute game changer because it's so, it genuinely, every time I sit down to record an episode, I'm excited about it and I look forward to it. And, the day before when I know I got to record a podcast tomorrow, I'm like looking forward to it and I can't wait to do it, which is really fun. And I think that this workflow has been a huge part of that. And, audio only, we talked about audio video a couple weeks ago. As much as I love making videos, let me tell you just like the fun and the joy of audio only podcasting. There's something about it that is just really fun in a different way to me compared to how other things are fun. So this has been absolutely great. And that's what I thought we would do today. So I have a list of things to update you on, and that's what we're going to talk about. First and foremost, and most appropriately, should probably talk about microphones, because that was the kickoff to this whole season, was my search for the perfect microphone. And that's actually not the microphone I'm using right now, the one that won that whole thing. So let's talk about microphones a bit. The search for the perfect microphone resulted in pretty overwhelmingly listeners and viewers at large voting for the Lewitt LCT 240 Pro as the best sounding mic, which it is a really, really good sounding microphone. And I was leaning towards the Ethos, the Earthworks Ethos, or the Blue Sona to kind of take that slot. And any of the microphones, if you just listen to them by themselves, they all sound amazing. It's only when you get into the very minute details of having them side by side that then preferences start emerging and stuff. So the Lewitt was the winner, but unfortunately, I still don't use it that often just because of how it mounts. It really does need a shock mount, and it has a great shock mount, but it has to be positioned in a way where the boom arm is essentially pretty much straight in front of you. My whole setup is based on the boom arm being from the side. If you watch my video this past week about the Sennheiser profile microphone, I kind of talked about the niceness of being able to position a microphone sideways. So I might even be able to use that little Sennheiser arm. I've tried all kinds of things, but it's tough to find something that will solidly and reliably let you position a microphone on an arm that's coming from the side, and then you turn the microphone. What a boom arm needs, and what I would do if I made the perfect boom arm, is if you ever use an articulating arm for a camera support, especially the iFootage ones, they have these gears that are really, really big teeth. And when you loosen the arm, they come apart, and then you twist it where you want, and then the teeth go back together. And once they're together, that cannot move from there. I would use that kind of a mechanism on a boom arm, kind of all over the place, even for the joint tension and stuff, but especially on the end mount for the microphone. I would have a pivot left and right thing, so it doesn't just go up and down, but it also goes left and right, but it's done with those interlocking teeth that are super strong, so that way when you turn it towards you and you lock it down, it's not going anywhere. And I would even still do that with the up or down too. So basically the microphone's not going to accidentally twist, and the weight of the microphone is not going to accidentally unscrew it, or all these problems that happen all the time. Anyway, that's why I don't use the Lewitt as much as I would like to, just because it's absolutely frustrating to try to do that kind of thing. So lately, the XLR mics I've been really loving are the Blue Sona and the Earthworks Ethos. That hasn't really changed. The Ethos has been the one that's been on my boom arm running into the Rodecaster most of the time. It's not what I'm using right now, but that's the one that I've been using a lot. But it's I don't know, there's so many good microphones. Every time I switch to a different one, I'm like, this is the coolest one. This is the that's what's fun, is they're all pretty great in their own way. But the microphone I'm using right now is the Sennheiser Profile, the same one that I used last week, and the same one that I used in my video from this week. Last week, I guess I couldn't tell you that's what I was using. I was using this one, the Sennheiser Profile, but it hadn't been announced or made public yet. And then my video came out this past Thursday that announced it, and that's what I'm using right now. But I want to talk about this microphone more. The reason I wanted to use it again was because I have been sick, as you probably know, and finally in the past few days, I don't feel congested anymore. I was congested for weeks, and I would have loved to make my Sennheiser video after that, but it felt like I was never going to not be congested again, and I still am a little tiny bit. So it was I just have to make this video and power through. So in last week's episode, I definitely sounded a bit congested, and even in the video for the profile, I tried so hard. I was doing vocal exercises and trying to drink a bunch of water and taking so many breaks while recording to try and clear out, the congested sound. It was just really, really hard. And finally, I don't feel congested. So I wanted to use the profile on this episode so that way it would be a really good, consistent sound sample of me not sounding super congested on the microphone, because I don't want anyone to think that the microphone is going to make you sound congested. It won't. It's a very accurate, it just picks up what you sound like, which is what you want out of a microphone most of the time. So this is a Sennheiser Profile. It is a USB microphone. And the cool thing about it, as I kind of mentioned or alluded to last week, is I did a sponsored video with Sennheiser on this microphone, which was really fun. And basically the way that came about was I got a message from someone at Sennheiser that said, like, I forget exactly what it said, but it was like, hey, is everything okay? Like, there have been some rumors kicking around with your name. I just wanted to like reach out and see what you're up to. And I was like, oh my God, what does that mean? Like, what did I do? What's happening? And I had misinterpreted the situation. And essentially it was like Sennheiser is going to release a USB microphone, and they were thinking of people that, they would want to like help with the launch of it, basically. And I was like, oh, okay, that's all positive stuff. So we talked a little bit about that. And I kind of explained like, well, I don't normally use USB microphones. They are wildly convenient a lot of the time. But for me, like, I do love the fiddliness of XLR microphones and interfaces and mixers and getting to connect all the things and figure it out and dial in different sounds and like those nuances that from everything from the cable to mic boosters and like all of those things that lead to different sounds is fascinating to me. And the XLR microphones just have more of that. Like it's a world with more of that. USB microphones are kind of like, you got the one, you plug it in, unless you're using like the Rode setup with the specific mics that let you connect more USB mics to a single computer. You're pretty much always limited to one USB mic per computer. So, that's limiting right there. And yeah, they have a place, but it's not usually something I'm super excited about. And so we talked about that, and basically the thing that I am excited about though is not everybody is like me, or like I know a lot of people who listen to this as well, where we enjoy tinkering with microphones. That's part of the fun. For a lot of people, that is not part of the fun. They just want better sound, and they don't want to have to think about it. They don't want to have to mess with anything. And that's where USB mics really come in and save the day, because they are, especially at this point, most of them are all plug and play, and they just have sort of different features and different functionality, but the basics are all pretty much the same. And so I really love having a solid option to recommend when someone wants to, just have better audio, whether it's for video calls, they want to start podcasting, whatever it might be, they just want better audio. It's always kind of a diagnosis of like, okay, do you want to play around with more complicated stuff, or do you want simplicity? And if it's simplicity, I always think of USB mics. And there are some great options. I have a video on my channel with one of the Fifine microphones, which sounds more than Fifine. I think it was the K669B, some super catchy product name. It was just a really inexpensive USB mic that I had found on Amazon. I think at the time I paid like $30 for it. And I wanted to see, like, what does the $30 microphone sound like? It sounded great. It worked great. It worked really, really well. Like, it wasn't the best sounding microphone in the world, but it was great for the price, infinitely better than not using a microphone, and easily competitive with a lot of, $80 to $100 USB microphones. And so that's cool. That's a cool thing to know. I don't know much else about the company besides that the microphone seems good and people do seem to like them overall. And then of course there's options like the Yeti and, other $100 things. There's like the Q2U, and there's a bunch of combo mics like the Q9U and the MV7, which are getting a little bit more expensive. But solid USB mics, like one that I can recommend to someone without having to have a bunch of caveats, like get this microphone, but just pay attention to this, or but you'll have to do this. Like, I hate having to do that. That's one thing I love about the Rodecaster 2 was it eliminates the need for discussion on mic boosters. I really hated having to recommend mics, or I'm like, oh, especially dynamic mics. This would be a great mic. You might like this microphone, but you'll probably have to get a booster. Here's, expensive to inexpensive boosters I'd recommend. The Rodecaster just eliminates that. So if someone says like, I'm looking for a mic and I have a Rodecaster 2, it's such a relief to me because I don't have to even think about that. I can just focus on the microphone. And I kind of like the same thing with a good solid USB mic is what is something I can recommend to someone and they're not going to get confused. They don't have to install a bunch of software. They don't have to like fiddle with it. They can just plug it in, know almost nothing about microphones, and it's going to work for them. And so the two of those that have happened recently are the Rode NT-USB Plus and this one here, the Sennheiser Profile. And I really like both of them. I've gotten a lot of questions about how the Profile compares to the Deity VO7U, which I actually gave mine to somebody after I did my review on it because I didn't think I was going to use a USB microphone that often, although I kind of wish I still had it so that way I could compare it to these. The sound of the Deity, though, I honestly wasn't super crazy with. I think it was a good sound. It is a good sounding microphone, and I like the I like the RGB lights on it, which I know is a semi-controversial opinion. But the thing with the Deity is it sounded like it had a more processed signal. It had like that kind of compressed, broadcasty, radio-y sound just straight out of the box, which I think was on purpose, so that way you don't have to do anything. You plug it in and you get like a broadcasty sound, which I think is great for a lot of people and a lot of people like. It wasn't perfect for me. It's not usually the kind of thing I'm looking for. So the Profile, this microphone, I feel like has a much more natural sound profile. And then the other option that I love is the Rode NT-USB Plus, which actually, since I'm doing USB, I'm recording into Audition. I'm going to stop this recording and switch to the USB Plus so you can hear that. So let's do a quick comparison. This is the Sennheiser Profile. That's what you've been hearing the whole time. And this is the Rode NT-USB Plus. I definitely think that there's a difference in sound between these microphones. I really love the way that this microphone sounds. The thing that the NT-USB Plus did, and I've used it on several episodes this season, is it really made me look again at USB microphones as like, oh shoot, they could be kind of cool. The biggest thing with the NT-USB Plus, because they've had the NT-USB for many years, is they redid the preamps inside. So it has the exact same preamps that are in the Rodecaster Pro 2, the Revolution preamps, which are super, super quiet. And I also think that this has just a nice, really rich, really full sound. It's a super well-made microphone, of course, as you would expect from Rode. So I really have been loving this one. And this has been my favorite microphone prior to using the Profile. And I still, even side by side, I still like both of them for different things. The downside to the NT-USB Plus, the only two really potential ones are its size. It is a very big microphone. It's very well made. I actually love the design and the way it feels and everything, but it's big. Like, if you're just doing audio only, it's not really an issue, but if you're using it on camera, it's very hard not to have this just completely block your face, and especially if you're putting it on a boom arm or something. It does come with a really nice mesh pop filter. It's plastic, but it's really, really well made. Like, maybe it's thin metal, I don't know. But it works really, really well. The problem is it's just very, very big. And that's sort of a downside. And the other problem is that there's no gain dial. There are two dials on this microphone. There is the mix dial, so you can mix in how much you hear of yourself versus how much of your USB source, like if you're on a stream or something. And of course, there's a headphone volume, but there's no gain dial. And there's also no mute switch on it. So that's all stuff you have to do through software. And both of those are actually really annoying to have to do through software. I don't use mute a lot usually, but if I'm on other people's streams, I do use mute a lot, especially if I'm on a stream with somebody else and maybe they have multiple people, and I don't want to, if they're controlling who's muted and unmuted, like through, Riverside or StreamYard or Ecamm or whatever it might be, I don't want to mess with that. So I try to mute and unmute myself appropriately. And usually I use the Rodecaster, but on a USB mic, it's nice to be able to just push the mute button. This one does not have a mute button. It doesn't also not have the gain. So that way the only way to adjust the gain is to go into your computer settings and do it through software, which is, frustrating. But Rode is also making this compatible with some of their new software, which is essentially like a virtual Rodecaster Pro. So you can use this microphone and have all the functionality of a Rodecaster and EQ it. But again, that's really cool. And that's a really awesome thing, especially when you spend, I think this is $170. When you spend $170 on a mic and you get access to all that, it's pretty cool. However, I'm going to pause this right now. And now we're back on the Sennheiser Profile. This microphone has none of those issues. One, it is cheaper. The microphone itself is $129 versus $169. You can spend $200 and get the version of this that has the boom arm with it. So it is a less expensive microphone. I think that makes a difference. It does have a physical mute switch, and it does have a physical gain dial, and it's not compatible with any app. So if you like using all the Rode apps, the Rode mic is obviously the way to go. But for me, a lot of times when I'm using a USB mic, I don't want personally to have to use it with any apps. And this, I can run it into something like Audition or whatever and play with it, but I don't have to access any of the features. I can do everything physically from the mic itself. And I think that I think they're both really good sounding microphones. I mean, obviously, like it's a Rode mic and a Sennheiser mic. They're going to be really good. The thing with the profile, what I was really excited about is I was like, oh, it's Sennheiser's very first USB microphone. And then it turns out some of the people at Sennheiser who like didn't work there 20 years ago did a little bit of digging and realized that no, there had been USB versions of a couple of their microphones in the past, but they weren't like, it was almost like a collaboration and not a full Sennheiser microphone. And so this is the first fully designed Sennheiser microphone where everything from the housing to the preamps to the capsule, everything start to finish is designed by Sennheiser, which is really cool. The microphone housing is made in China, but the capsule itself that captures the sound is made in Germany, just alongside all of the other Sennheiser capsules. So that's a cool thing. Like $130 and you get a really good Sennheiser mic is, it's kind of awesome. And I'm excited for that. The thing with the video, though, which was exciting, is it actually has been sort of frustrating for some people because they're like, I can't find this microphone. I can't order it. It doesn't even show up if you put it in Google or anything. Sennheiser basically let me just decide when to announce this new product based on my random upload schedule that I picked like 4 years ago, which is really cool. So yeah, it's like I upload on Thursdays. The only thing they had said was it'd be kind of cool if we could like announce this before Christmas, but if not, no worries. And I was like, yeah, okay, we could do December 15th then. And they're like, okay, cool. And then the video came out. And so it's like, there's no other big coordinated thing. There's nobody else that even has the microphone yet, which is really, I'm not going to lie, it's pretty cool. Like, I wish from the consumer side, it's nice when people can have more voices and more opinions and more info. Like there are people who are way better at evaluating microphones than I am, who it'd be nice to hear from. But you will, like, the microphone will come out and the same round of testing that every new mic release goes through will happen. But that was just a really cool thing. Like I told them when we were doing the sponsored thing, I was like, well, I need to try the microphone first. Like, this sounds like a great idea, but I need to make sure the microphone sounds great before I would agree to do any kind of thing. So I was like, yeah, of course. So they sent me one. And the more I used it, the more I liked it. Like, immediately I was like, oh, this sounds pretty good. And then the more I started using it and recording with it and working with the files, like, this is a really solid microphone that I definitely like and would recommend. And the price point, the name brand behind it, the quality of the mic, make it an easy recommendation where it's like, yes, this is what I would like to do or like to have in my back pocket as a recommendation for people. And then Sennheiser was super cool about the idea of donating some of these. So basically, I think I talked about this last week, but yeah, I did. We reached out to several different digital media education programs around the world, which are all public school programs. A lot of them are in need of extra funding or serve students that are in, at-risk, quote-unquote, areas or low socioeconomic status, and donating at least class sets to each of those programs, if not more mics, which I believe are also going to include like headphones and things. So it's a whole kit, not just a microphone, which is awesome. So that right there is like over 100 microphones. I don't know the exact number, but it's over 100 of these microphones, which at $129 a piece, that's a pretty decent chunk of change. And then in addition to, Sennheiser was on board with setting aside a small allotment of them for me to decide over the next few months, like, where to send them, which is just super cool. They were like really on board with that. I think that's a great idea. I think it's a fun way to approach a sponsorship where instead of me feeling like, oh, I feel weird saying something is sponsored. It's like it's exciting. I'm telling people about something that's really cool that's happening, and other people benefit from it, and that's really cool. So the microphone itself, if you're listening to it and you're like, yeah, I need a good USB mic, comes out early 2023. I don't think there's an exact date yet. So maybe even by the time the next season of this podcast begins, maybe it'll be out or around then. And when that happens, in the video I did, the first look video, which is the only first look video of the microphone that exists, which is super cool. Obviously, I'm not focusing on other microphones in that first look. It's not a full review, even though honestly, it's exactly the same as a full review would be, other than I guess there's no comparisons, but it's not like I hid my opinions of the microphone or anything. But the fact that it is sponsored means like you can't call that a review. So it's like, okay, it's a first look. It's more of a showcase kind of thing. This is a microphone that's coming out. And honestly, like Sennheiser wanted to do that, to go like, hey, like, let's put this out there and see what people think about it and see what some of the feedback is. And, you know, that's going to be very helpful as they ramp up like the manufacturing, the distribution of the microphones early next year. And so yeah, but you can't buy it right now. When the microphone is released, I'll do a follow-up video that is an unsponsored follow-up video that is more of a comparison, kind of like I just did, where, you know, you heard the NT USB Plus, you heard the profile. I'll throw in all the other usual suspects, all the USB mics I have, but even some of the XLR ones just for comparison. And that'll be a fun follow-up video. But I genuinely think this is a really solid microphone that I enjoy using a lot. And the lack, I don't know if you saw in the video, but the lack of handling noise, I'm picking up the microphone and moving it all over right now. This is a time I wish I was doing a video podcast, so you can see how much I'm like shaking and moving the microphone. It does not pick up handling noise at all, which is so cool. Even now I'm hitting the table really hard and the mic is, it's picking up the sound of me and the table, but it's not like being hugely negatively effective. So that's been great. So that's the microphone I'm using. That was a long discussion of microphones, but it's been a fun process to like work on this project, to get to like reveal something from I don't know, it's been really cool. Like, it's been super, super fun. This is the profile. I wanted to make sure you get to hear it more, especially without me being sick while using it. So that's what we're doing right now. Speaking of that video though, that video and the one I did before it, the camcorder video, and then I have a couple others that I've done that aren't out yet, using the new format that I talked about last week. So while I was sick and I couldn't do anything, and I was watching a bunch of YouTube, I started to really pay attention to why I liked certain videos and why I didn't like other videos, and really, really focusing on the videos I liked and what made me like them. And I talked about this last week, but came up with like this sort of like a template for how I would want to outline my videos in a way that I think structures them and hits points that I like in other videos. So it's like, you know, really helps me make the video I would want to watch, basically, even more so than I felt like I was already doing. And now I've done a couple of videos like that. And so far, it's like, it's gone really well. I don't have enough data to give any conclusions or to say like, you should definitely think about doing this. But the camcorder video I did is the most successful video I've done all year so far, which is crazy. I've never had a video do as well as it's done, as fast as it did. That's great. And maybe it's just an interesting topic. Maybe it doesn't matter how the video is structured, but I have to think that it is connected in some way. And then the Sennheiser profile video was also based on that template. And I was very nervous about that. It didn't perform the same way the camcorder one did, but it also performed above average for my videos. And I was nervous because it's, you know, it's a relatively niche product, like a USB microphone, not as broad as something like a camcorder. And it's also a sponsored video. So, you know, right there, those are sort of two things going against the video doing well. But it's done great. And it's a fun video, and I feel like it's interesting to watch. I think the format is helping videos to be interesting to watch, even if you're not necessarily super interested in that specific topic. Like, the way that it's structured and the approach and the discussion is just fun, even if you don't really care about the thing specifically. I don't know if it's like, well, the actual video like engages people in certain ways. I don't have the mental bandwidth to like get into that mindset, and I don't want to. But it seems like the videos are better because of it. And it might just be because the format and the template are helping me to plan the videos better. And the more planning that goes into it, the better the end result is, which makes sense, of course. And I don't know. So it'll be interesting. By the time season 9 of this podcast starts, I'll have had a number of other videos kind of like put together with this process out. It'll be interesting to see like if I have any conclusions or stuff that's worth sharing, not in like a YouTube growthy way, like, oh, you got to do this to like hack the algorithm or whatever, but just in a way of, this is kind of how, this is an effective way of approaching putting your videos together. That's really what I'm looking for. Like, I want to make the best videos possible. I want them to be fun to make, but also interesting and beneficial to watch. Maybe this is a way to help do that some of the time. Not necessarily all the time, but some of the time. So far that new format has been working, which is absolutely fantastic. Now, the next thing that I want to talk about, I want to talk about camera bags again. We did a whole episode on camera bags, and I have a few updates for you, and still definitely open to some input. Last time I talked about camera bags, I got a lot of really great recommendations, which I really, really, really appreciate. And I've gone down a rabbit hole of bags, and I've also been able to use my Manfrotto bag more, which has been absolutely fantastic. So here's a few updates / calls for recommendations. And this is so dumb. I'm physically changing how I'm positioning myself so I can look over and see my camera bags and like they're here. I'm basically doing a video podcast without the camera on or good lighting, but I can see them. So I don't know. I'm a crazy person, but the few things that I've changed. So to sum it all up, what I've been looking for in a camera bag is a relatively small backpack that is super durable. It doesn't need to hold all the gear in the world. I don't want to carry a bunch of heavy gear. I don't want to carry everything with me. Like, I don't want to have $20,000 worth of camera gear on my back. That's scary. But something that can hold cameras, something that can carry a laptop, something that isn't super huge, something that is durable. So, if you get caught in the rain or, you have to set it down in the dirt or something, it's not going to get messed up or your gear's not going to get damaged. And something that is super functional where it's very easy to get in and out, at least to take your camera in and out of the bag, especially in my case, a camera with a microphone mounted on top, not just the camera itself. That is a surprisingly hard combo to come by. And the video I made about camera bags, it was on my second channel. I think I mentioned this. I took it and re-edited it a little bit or added more into it and kind of contextualized it more for my main channel. I still haven't published it on my main, so that video has just been like missing because other things like, the Sennheiser video and stuff have popped up where it's like, that's more timely than my camera bag video. So all things being equal, I believe the camera bag video is going to come out next Thursday, which you might have already seen when the first version was up on the second channel. And the funny part about that, I actually really like the video. Like going back and rewatching it, going like, this is a couple months old. Like, let me make sure it's good. I actually like genuinely just enjoyed watching it as a person who's a nerd about camera bags. But the funny part is, I think I will have an update camera bag video relatively soon, and I have to make sure it doesn't feel like I made a video where I'm like, look, I just bought this camera bag. Here's my long-term review of it. No, like there have been like 4 months that have passed. But I think it's going to look weird in the publishing thing. It's also going to be strange because like my office, no one will notice, but like things, it's like, wait, did you take your guitars off the wall and put a bunch of stuff back where it used to be? Like, did you undo a bunch of remodeling progress you did in your office studio? No, I didn't. But anyway, in that video, I was explaining the Brevity Jumper, absolutely great camera bag, especially for being a small backpack style camera bag that's super discreet, super compact. I love that one. It's darn near perfect. It is more durable than I originally gave it credit for, but I still am not crazy about the material it's made of just because it does get dirty so easily. Even though you can wash it, it's like, I don't want to have to do that. And it is not super rainproof. Like the fear I had when we were in New York and it started raining like crazy, And it totally like water got into the bag, and that was scary. And like, not necessarily that the bag was full of water, but it was like moist, damp inside. It's like a rainforest inside the bag. Not something you want. And so I want a camera bag where that's not an issue, like my Tenba messenger bag, where it's like, I don't care. This could be in the middle of a snowstorm, hurricane, whatever. I'm not worried about what's inside at all. That's what I want. So, and I want a backpack because I like backpacks. So the Manfrotto bag, the Manfrotto Pro Tactic. Oh, no, what is it? The heck is it? It's the Manfrotto Pro Light Backloader Small. That's the one that I have. They have two. They have the backloader is, believe it or not, loads your gear from the back. The front loader loads it from the front, and the flex loader loads it from a bunch of different angles. So they're slightly different versions of the same line of bag. I like the back loader. I have the small one. There's also a medium one, which is weird because those are the only two sizes they have. So technically the medium would be the large, but because there is no large, so by default. Anyway, the weird thing about it though is it's listed as like a 19-liter bag, which I thought, oh cool, that's going to be barely any bigger than my Brevity bag. And I got it. It's a small compact backpack, but it's way bigger than the Brevity one. It's definitely a 25-liter bag. So I don't know how they're measuring it, why they're measuring it the way they are. It's a 25-liter bag. And it's been great. The only thing with it really is the top compartment. That's really something I've been looking for, is a camera bag that has an easy access top compartment. Side access doesn't really work for me, especially when you want to have a microphone on a camera. It doesn't really work. And what I prefer is a bag that has two side pockets. So like this one has two pockets on the side, so you can do two water bottle and a tripod, whatever. You're not kind of limited to the number of times I've been like, well, where do I carry my water bottle and put my tripod here? Like, I want to be hands-free. Two side pockets helps you be hands-free. And this bag has that, which is great. And then a top pocket, which is pretty roomy. It's not quite big enough to put in a camera with a microphone on it, which is a bummer. I don't know if that really exists. But the real big downside is just that it doesn't, like, the zipper is in the middle, and every time you reach into it, it's kind of a narrow opening. So even though the compartment itself is big, the zipper, like, rubs up against your skin, but also anything you're taking in and putting out, like a camera, the zipper rubs up against, and having a metal zipper rub up against your camera over and over again isn't my favorite thing. So it's always kind of this, like, I'm prying the bag open, carefully, like, weaving pieces of gear out of it. And, it's not the biggest deal or anything, but it's a slight annoyance every time I use it. I am able, though, to configure the actual main compartment to hold the camera with the microphone perfectly safely. It's like really satisfying the way I've like formed the dividers. So it's like, thump, and the camera just fits in there perfectly. It's great. And then my way around that was I got the Peak Design capture clip, which I know is super popular, but I've never used it. It's great, mostly. There's one big negative to it. But what it is it's a little clip that can go on a backpack strap. They also have a thing where you can put it on like a belt strap. And basically the small little Arca Swiss plate that goes on the bottom of your camera, it just clips in there super securely. And then there's a lock, so you can lock it where it can't be released at all. Or if you want to release it, you just push a button and then it comes out. It feels very precarious at first, but it's super well made and it works great. So what that means is when you have your camera out, but you don't want to use it right now, you just clip it to your backpack strap and you can be hands-free. It does feel weird because you kind of have a big camera just bouncing around on your shoulder, which can throw off your weight. Like, I've definitely gotten sore shoulders from doing that, but it is really nice. So it kind of solves that problem. It's like, if I'm not using my camera, I just put it away in the bag. If I am using it, I can hold it or I can clip it here and then it's done. So do I really need a quick top access where it would be nice, but maybe it's not super necessary, I guess is my point. The downside to the Peak Design thing, and this is, I feel like their name is almost ironic sometimes because you're literally calling yourself Peak Design. This is the peak of design, and everything is like 95% great, but then 5% bafflingly bad. And I don't understand. It's like the opposite of Peak Design. It's Valley Design. And the thing that's a problem with this is the friggin' plate that goes on your camera. They use these really, really thin Arca Swiss plates, which is fine. They're super low profile. That's great. However, the thing comes with an Allen wrench because the screw in the bottom of the tripod plate has to be put on with an Allen wrench. This is a device that is geared towards somebody who wants to be able to do things quickly, on the go, like as efficient and effective as possible. And the only way you can attach it to your camera is by using a separate tool that you have to remember to have on you at all times. That is not peak design. That's peak inconvenience. And this became a problem last summer when Peter was visiting because he was using it and he had this plate on there. And at one point we needed to put my camera on, like he had the tripod or whatever. We needed to put my camera on his thing and we couldn't switch the plates because we forgot the tool with us, like the very specific Allen key, which obviously like just keep an Allen key in your backpack and you're good. But also, no, like look at a Joby GorillaPod where you just have I think it's called a D-ring that goes around the head of the screw and you don't even need anything. Or at the very least, a slotted screw where you can use a key or a coin or something to tighten it. It's much easier. You probably have something like that around more than an Allen key. And I have tried. So I found something. I don't know where it is, but I have found a solution on my camera where I replaced. Oh, and this is the other thing. You can buy screws that have D-rings on them, but because the Peak Design plate is designed to be so incredibly thin, they're too thick. And so when you put those in, it won't mount into the capture clip anymore. It just scratches the bejesus out of it. So I did find or maybe I commandeered it from something else. Somehow I ended up with a small screw that doesn't have a D-ring, but it does have a slot on it. And I put that on the Peak Design plate. And now I can use that. And the benefit is the Peak Design plate does also fit in the PGY-Tech Mantis Pod, the little travel tripod thing. The Mantis Pod plate does not fit in the Peak Design plate because it's too fat, but the Peak Design one fits in the Mantis Pod. So that's perfect because that means you can clip it on this capture clip, you can take it off, boom, clip it on a tripod. It will fit in any other Arca Swiss tripod or anything around, which is awesome. So basically, it's perfect, except that they need to have a screw that has a D-ring on it. And basically, just make your Arca Swiss plate, just make it the same size as the other ones. I know it's going to be a little bit fatter than normal, but you're going to increase compatibility with like everything that's out there and make everybody's lives so much easier. And that would be literally peak design. Anyway, that has helped make the bag more functional, and I really like it. If you have not used the capture clips, definitely recommend it. I'll probably do a video on them at some point. There's a silver one and a black one. I now have both. The silver one is nice because it still scratches up, but it's less prone to being visible. The black one is beautiful, but it scratches if you look at it. And so literally, like you put your camera in or out of it a couple times and it's going to start scratching through the black and showing the silver. But I ended up getting that one also because, I wanted to be able to tell them apart so I can tell the parts apart separately, but also I kind of don't mind the really scratched up look on that. I don't know, something about like the weathered look that develops on those over time doesn't bother me. I think that actually looks kind of nice. So that's just a weird thing. The reason I got a second one though is because I've also been experimenting with another bag. This is my update, by the way. So 48 hours later, this is my update about camera bags. As I was going through everything that popped up and all the recommendations, I didn't really want a roll top bag. That was a lot of things people recommended. I got also recommendations from people for some really great bags that seemed to work perfectly, but they all had black interiors. I do not like camera bags with black interiors because it's so easy to just have a hard time finding stuff in there. So the whole time that I've been using the Manfrotto and talking about what I want in a camera bag and the things that it's kind of like the areas that maybe it's letting me down, there's one other bag that it pops up and people talk about, and I talked about in the last time we talked about camera bags, and that is the Nomatic Peter McKinnon Everyday Camera Bag. And there was so much hype about that. I think the thing that is tough with the Peter McKinnon bag is if you try to find info about it, there's more reviews for that specific camera bag model than I think any camera bag model on the internet. Partially because it's incredibly popular. It's incredibly popular for people who make videos, so then they get it and they want to make videos about it, which makes sense. And they also did an insane marketing campaign when it was announced like a year and a half ago or so. So they sent bags out to everybody, and there's tons of reviews. And then there was a Kickstarter campaign that took a long time to complete. So there was that initial wave of reviews by like every person even tangentially related to the camera niche. And then those kind of died down. And then there was all of the like, I actually got it. People getting their thing they'd waited months and months for and wanting to do unboxing videos, which is great. Like I've watched them all and they're all great. Like no complaints. The downside is though, it's really hard to find ones of people who have like, yeah, I've used this bag for 5 months and this is what I think about it. There's a couple of those, but not many. And so it's like, it was sort of hard for me to discern hype versus reality. And we kind of talked about it, but we talked about that in the last episode. But looking at the features of it seemed really nice. And then the other thing about it, the reason I really never paid attention to it is because I thought it was too big. The original Peter McKinnon bag, I think it's the travel bag, is 35 liters and it's massive. It's literally meant to be your suitcase and your camera bag for a multiple night trip. So it's not a take everywhere bag. I'm looking for a take everywhere with you bag. The 25 liters seemed really big, especially I was like, well, geez, my backpack is 19 liters. I don't want 6. That's huge. Like, I don't want that. This is where I learned that my camera bag is marketed wrong in terms of size, because I looked up the external specifications for the McKinnon bag, and it's actually a little bit smaller than my Manfrotto bag, like, a fraction of an inch, but smaller. And so I went back and forth for ages. Like it's been in and out of my shopping cart over and over. And finally I was like, okay, I'm just going to buy it from B&H because it's easily available. You don't have to do it on Kickstarter or whatever. I'm going to buy it from B&H, knowing that they have a very good, no questions asked return policy. It's the holiday season, so I even have to like February to return it if I need it. I'm going to buy it just so I can see for myself. And I figured that it's a win-win scenario because either I end up with the perfect camera bag that like does solve all my problems, win-win, or I don't end up with that. And I answer the question so it's not nagging me. Like maybe it felt like how it felt when I was going to get a new camera and I was looking at Sony, and in the back of my mind, the whole time I was trying to make Canon work for me, and none of the models at the time were working. In the back of my mind was like, just get a Sony. And then I did, and it was perfect. I was kind of wondering if this is the same thing. Try to make all this. It's like, just get that one. It's like, okay, now I will know. So if I don't like it and it doesn't work for me, then I've answered the question. I've put my mind at ease, and then I get my money back. So then I save some money, right? So that I don't like buying things with the intent to return it, but buying things you're uncertain about, knowing that you could if you need to, is really nice. So anyway, I got that camera bag last week. And I can say it is the exact same size as my Manfrotto bag. Like they are identical. And I'm not sure. I'm trying to think timeline wise. I don't know how development works. It's hard for me not to think that the Manfrotto bag was inspired by the Nomatic Peter McKinnon everyday bag, because it seems like it's a different company's take on a lot of things there. And if I think of how they announced it versus the lead time to when it came out versus when the Manfrotto came out, it really feels like it has to be like very closely related to that. I mean, so much so that like I got the one that has 2 small camera cubes in it, which I'll talk about in a second. But those fit perfectly in the Manfrotto bag. Like it's the exact same size. So Manfrotto bag is actually 25 liters. That's what I also discovered. Or at least it's the same size as another 25 liter bag. So here's where I'm at with those. First off, and then maybe you have, because the Nomatic bag is so popular, maybe you have one and you know this, it is a very nice bag. Like it's a very expensive bag. The one I got, which is the bag that comes with 2 small camera cubes, was $390, then plus tax and shipping. The Manfrotto bag was $180. So it's hard to go like, well, you can get almost everything that's almost exactly the same for half the price ish. Why wouldn't you just do that? I don't really know. I'm trying to take price out of this because Nomatic has never tried to sell this as a budget bag. Like it's never been what it's marketed as. It's an expensive bag. The bag itself is $300, but it doesn't come with any kind of dividers or organizers. So you have to choose what kind of dividers you want. You can get regular camera dividers. You can get one big like camera cube, which is almost like a tray that has dividers in it, or you can get two small, like the two small cubes equal one big cube, and then you can have two cubes in there. And they're kind of, I really like the camera cube system. I gotta say, like, it is neat because you can organize things and you can take them out, put them in, reorganize the bag super quickly and easily. I think their intent is that you have a whole bunch of cubes. So like, maybe you have one for your video gear, for your drone gear, your action camera gear, your cables, whatever. And then depending on what you're doing, you just very quickly, easy swap them out. And you're not switching dividers around all the time. You're not like trying to reorganize your bag. You're just sort of grabbing and going, which I think actually would be expensive, but very effective. So first off, it's a super nice bag. Like you get it and it just feels, everything from the moment you open the box is like, this is pretty darn high quality. There are a couple things that I'm like, maybe this could be a little higher quality. Like there are a couple loose threads here or there. My Manfrotto bag has no issues like that. And there are, the zippers are weird. Like the zippers are not YKK zippers, but they're supposed to be good zippers, but they're fine, but they're nowhere near as good as like a YKK zipper would be. And they definitely don't zip as smoothly. And the bag kind of has some unique shapes to it. So as you're moving zippers around these paths, sometimes they get stuck a little bit, which that right there is almost enough to have me go, yeah, okay, it's not for me. But the bag itself is super nice. It is way comfortable. Both bags are comfortable. The Nomadic bag is more comfortable than the Manfrotto bag. The straps just don't feel quite as stiff, but they're still really like padded and comfortable. So I like that a lot. Both bags are pretty comfortable though, and that also depends on the weight that you have. They both stand up on their own, but the Manfrotto stands up more easily. A big feature with the Nomadic bag is that it stands up by itself. So when you set it down, you can just set it down wherever you're at. It's not going to tip, and then you can open up the top and get stuff out or whatever. And that works, but especially if it's loaded up a little bit, it's a little bit easier to tip over, whereas the Manfrotto bag is more like a Weeble that like wobbles but won't fall down. Like it's really sturdy, solid, even when loaded fully with multiple tripods and stuff. Like you set it down, it doesn't tip over. It's really nice. I didn't realize how nice that is. It is super nice. They both have two side pockets, so they're similar that way. But the McKinnon bag, I'll just make a whole video about it. We don't have to go through all the features here. The McKinnon bag side pockets, they're either like open or closed. And so if you have something big like a tripod, it fits perfect. If you have something small like a Mantis pod, like a little travel tripod or a monopod or something, it kind of just like flops around and can easily fall out. Whereas the Manfrotto bag, the side pockets are really elasticy, so they hold things to the bag. I'll make a video that probably compares the both of these specifically because it's pretty interesting. Ultimately, the thing that really drew me to the McKinnon bag is that it has the loft, which is the top compartment that opens up. Unlike the Manfrotto bag, which is like a zipper in the middle that you have to pry open, it's essentially like the whole top of the bag like unzips and then you open it and there's this like, it's like how a garage door opens and that whole wall is then gone from the garage and you can see everything in. It's like that. Like you just remove the whole top and side and you can just see everything that's in this compartment, which is great. And the thing I could not tell is if it is big enough to put a camera with a microphone in, and it is not. Unfortunately, that was kind of the reason I got the bag. So that's a bummer. It's big enough for a camera. Like if you don't have a microphone mounted on top, you can fit a decent size, like the Nikon Z9 with a big lens can fit in there. Like it's big and spacious. If you have a microphone on top, it's not happening. Unfortunately, it can happen because you can expand that compartment to where it takes up more of the camera bag, and you can even then take one of the camera cubes and push it in it's almost like, so now you have top access with dividers, and then you can fit a camera with a microphone in there, and it works pretty well. But my only downside to that is it feels like a less efficient use of the space overall in the bag because you're essentially, there's a lot of like empty, unused space at the top of the bag when you do that. And so when you think about like going places and needing to put something you buy or a snack or a sweater, and there's like less space for that. And the other thing with it, which is super weird, is the prototype ones that they sent out to people A lot of people weren't allowed to show this, but in the time since, people have like, in their long-term reviews, they revealed it. There was this outer compartment that you opened up, and then it had all these little like organizers and elasticy things. And that is not on the actual version that shipped to people. It was just on the prototype versions. And that sucks that they got rid of that. I don't know why. I have thoughts that I'll go into in my video about it. But it means when you're using the bag, there's no real easy way to like store pens, small documents, tickets, things like that just like stuff you don't want to put in a main compartment or open a bag to get, but you just want to quickly be able to grab. It doesn't really have any way to do that. And that to me is like a huge oversight. But anyway, I'll go into a whole in-depth video. We don't need to make this whole episode about every minute difference between the two. But that was a thing I was considering. I got the bag. It's amazing. I think had I not gotten the Manfrotto bag and I just got the McKinnon bag, I would be totally satisfied with it. I think like this is amazing. But the fact that that's not what happened, that I had the Manfrotto bag, I think the Manfrotto bag is definitely a better overall value and more functional in several really important ways. And the bigger thing is I really like the McKinnon bag. So I was kind of hoping like I'm either going to love it or I'm going to immediately know that it's not for me. But I'm kind of in the middle where it's like I actually really like it, but there's still no clear thing. Like if I were going somewhere right now today and I needed to pack up my camera gear, there wouldn't be a clear choice of like, I will definitely take this bag and not this one. And so right there, that speaks to how good they both are, but it also makes me feel like, okay, if there's no clear choice, then maybe that is a no, right? Like if it's not a clear yes, it's a clear no, that kind of thing. So that's kind of how I feel. But then yesterday, something popped up where there's a few projects that I might be able to work on, not YouTube related, in like the coming weeks and months that might involve needing to like not travel, but like travel locally with camera gear, with bigger amounts of camera gear, where I was like, oh shoot, maybe having two decently capable bags is actually an important, helpful thing and not just the one. I like where it's like, this is my camera bag, the end. It's the one I use every day till it falls apart in like however many years, if it ever falls apart. Like I love that thing of you have your thing and you use it till the wheels fall off. Like that, I love that. And the tough part with that is finding something. It's like getting married, finding something you want to commit to, right, for that long. I don't know which one of these bags I want to marry, which one I want to commit to. Well, the Manfrotto is not going anywhere because I love it, and I'm also way past the return period, and it's great. So what the McKinnon bag has done is shown me how strong the Manfrotto bag is. But the McKinnon bag is like, it's a nice bag. It is super comfortable, and it looks great. Like, they did a great job on it. Like, it really did. But, well, I'll make a video about it. We don't have to do the whole camera bag podcast. But that's where I'm at with that. So anyway, that's why I have two capture clips, is because I got a second one. So as I'm switching between bags and trying them out and I'm trying to get used to the different ones and see which one I prefer, I can use that capture clip on each bag. Even if I end up sending the McKinnon bag back, I'll put the other capture clip back on my Brevity bag, which is still a fun one to use. Like, if it's 120 degrees in the desert in the middle of summer and like Heather and I are just going somewhere for the day real quick and I just need a camera and that's it. Like, that's the easiest bag to take. I know it's not going to rain. It's super small, super compact, super lightweight. So, there's still room for the Brevity bag there. But was not filled with brevity was my explanation of camera bags just now. So anyway, that's kind of where we're at there. They're both great, but there's no clear, pick this one, which does make me lean a little towards the Manfrotto, even though potentially there could be a use for both. And the last thing to cover, I did want to talk about the Final Cut Pro course, Rough Cut to Final Cut, not a sales pitch, but putting together a course has been so interesting. I feel like maybe I should have done a whole episode specifically about putting the course together, which might be useful for anyone who's thinking of ever making a course. Prior to this, so what's been interesting is as a teacher, the number of online trainings I had to take was absurd, and they were all awful. They were so terrible. Yeah, I can't even explain to you how bad they all were. So that was my kind of experience with the online trainings was why would anyone want to pay for this? I have to take it. That's why I'm doing it. I would never pay for this. Then I decided to make my own courses. In early mid 2021, I did the Podcaster Playbook and the Podcaster Idea Book, and they go together really well. The Playbook, I swear I know the difference between the names. The Playbook is production based, so it walks you through start to finish of how to produce an episode, how to submit it to directories, get it listed, record it, edit it, like that, all the production stuff. It does not talk about coming up with an idea at all. It works on the assumption that you already have an idea, but now you need to turn it into a podcast. And an audio podcast, there's a very small section about video podcasting, but it's definitely not the course to get if you're looking for video podcasting. And then there's the idea book, which is sort of the opposite. It talks about nothing to do with production, but everything to do with coming up with an idea. None of them talk about monetization. None of them talking about, strategy for competing topics and niches and anything like that. It's all just about sort of like the fun and the passion behind your podcast and putting a podcast together. And the idea book is really designed, it's based on a lot of stuff I used to do with my students, like assignments I developed with them. So I know that it works because I used it with teenagers for years. And it's basically like, if you have no idea, but you need to do something, here's how to try to find an idea. And then it's also, if you have multiple ideas, but you need to pick one, how to decide which one is the best one to focus on first. And once you figure that out, how to then essentially build out a season of episodes. So you don't just go like, this is my idea. Now I make episodes. But by the time you're done, you're like, hey, now I have my idea and I have a whole season to go. So the courses, I'm proud of both of them. And I'm proud of how they go together because, if you already have your idea, you don't need that course. You just can do the playbook. If you're already comfortable with your production, but you need ideas, you don't need the playbook. You can do the idea book. If you're just like, I want to start a podcast, but I don't know where to begin, you can get both of them. And so I know this sounds like a sales pitch. It's not. I'm just explaining like how proud I am of how they go together. They still work really well. I've added, updates over time since they've been released. They're great. But I took those I made those just how I would make a course, how I would teach a class. After making those, I have taken a ridiculous number of online courses now, which has been great. And fortunately, they've all been good because they're ones I picked and not ones I've been forced to take through like work or something. I started with Caleb Pike's A7S III camera guide, which I guess is more of a guide than a course. It's like not a full-on course, but it's, I was new to Sony cameras and I love and trust Caleb very much. So I was like, okay, walk me through this whole camera, please. And so I bought his camera guide, which is amazing. And he has guides for so many different camera models that I totally recommend. Like if you get a new camera, especially if you're switching brands and you're kind of new to the ecosystem, totally recommend one of Caleb's guides because it's really well put together and it will give you everything you need to know about that specific camera. Not even necessarily that specific camera, but also that camera system, which is great. In addition to that, earlier this year when I got my really nice bass and I wanted to get better at playing the bass, I enrolled in the Bass Buzz Beginner to Badass course, and I'm proud to say that I'm now badass because I finished the course. That is by far the best course I've ever taken. I learned more I think it took me 4 months to go through the whole thing. There's like 109 different lessons in the course, and you're learning an instrument. It's not something you can do in a week. Like you need to take time on it. I think I took 4 months, maybe 5 months to go through the whole thing. And legitimately, I learned more in that 5 months than in the previous 21 years of like trying to play music and teach myself how to do it. It's crazy. Like everything just made sense. I would run out after a lesson and like tell Heather like, oh my God, I understand the basics of reading music. I understand major and minor scales. I like, what? This is crazy. And then legitimately, I feel pretty good at the bass now. Now that it's done, like I feel pretty confident. I feel confident enough that if you ask me, like I play a bunch of different instruments, guitar, drums, keyboards, bass. If you ask me like, what do you play? I would say the bass. That is my main instrument that I play is the bass. That course is absolutely amazing. Bass Buzz has a YouTube channel, tons of great info on there. But I was even going to do a whole episode, which I might still do, about the course, because Josh, the guy who teaches it, is probably the best like natural teacher I've ever encountered. The fact that you could teach me anything about music kind of says it all right there. But like it's amazing. It's so good and so effective. It's not just me, because the course has been around for several years, and seeing how many other people, there's like a forum that goes along with it, in addition to just the comments under each lesson. It's like, it's not just working for me, it's working for a ton of other people. And seeing how he approached teaching a skill to someone, what the really important info to drive home repeatedly is, what some stuff that might be important but should just be left out of this discussion is. Like, the structure of the course was fascinating to me, so I learned a lot from that. I also took Casey Neistat. At the beginning of this year, Casey came out with a course about how he makes videos and stuff, which was great. Super guilt trippy, because you're supposed to be like paired with the group and do all this stuff. And I was like, oh, I'm not doing that. I just want access to the videos. I don't have time to like do critiques and things, but I just want to be able to like watch the videos. And that course is really cool. Like, I actually do really recommend it, because basically he walks you through the process of how he makes a quick video, like take my phone, make a quick little vlog or something, and edit that together super simply. And then how he makes a bigger video, like using, more intense gear, but in the Casey way, not like a traditional film set or anything. So using more intense gear, planning things out a little bit more, spending a lot more time in the edit to get your final product, reshooting stuff, fixing problems that happen. It's great. And so you see that whole production side, and then there are these really long videos where it's literally just an hour and a half of him editing, and you're just kind of watching him edit a video. Sometimes he's explaining what he's doing, sometimes he's not. I learned so much from that, just from watching another person edit. And he does some things very differently, and there's definitely times where I was like, no, you just push this button, why are you making this so hard on yourself? But it doesn't matter, it's his way of editing, and I learned a ton from watching that. And that was really what like helped me to get excited about the idea of making a Final Cut Pro course. I've also been taking an online course for my flight training, for the ground school portion of that, that's much more like, here's information and here's a test you need to take on the info. So it's much more traditional. So between all of that happening after I made my first courses, it's been really interesting to like figure out how I want to approach a course. And especially between Casey's course and the Bass Buzz course, they were a really nice hybrid, because Casey's course, what I love about it is it's his way of doing it. He's not telling you it's the best way, it's just his way. And the Bass course is geared towards results. Like, it is really geared towards, you will learn how to do this stuff. And so I had been wanting to do a Final Cut Pro course even before I did the podcasting courses, but I didn't know how to approach it because it just seemed overwhelming and kind of scary. It's a big program. There's a lot to cover. Like, I didn't even know where to begin. And I don't feel like I'm qualified to teach people about everything. Even though I taught that for 9 years to students, I don't feel qualified to teach everybody everything about everything in it. And this helped me realize you don't have to do that. Like, the joy I got from watching Casey edit, do your version of that. Do my own version of that. Like, this is how I use Final Cut Pro. This is how I make a video. This is what I have learned, how the program works for me. And you don't have to do it exactly like me, but this is what I do. But structure it in a way that's kind of like the Bass course, where it really is a little more cut and dry, not cut and dry, that sounds boring, but like more explanatory of, this is why you're doing this. This is the thought process behind this. This is the function of this. Like, really more explaining, just more explanatory, I guess. But from the ground up, it's like, this is just how I edit. I'm not teaching you, like, this is not the Apple certified official way to use Final Cut Pro. It's just like, hey, if you like my videos, this is how I make my videos using Final Cut Pro. And that was really fun. That was immediately super liberating, because it's not like I want to provide bad information, but I don't want to just make a video about the instruction manual. Like, I want to explain why I like this tool so much and why it works so well for me. And that was what the course came up to, which has been great. And the feedback so far has been so good, which makes me so happy, because I also didn't follow any of the normal rules. There's a lot of, there's like a process when it comes to making a course. Like, it's sort of a tried and true method for announcing the course, prepping the course, launching the course, creating like, your sales page and sales funnels and all this stuff. And when I did my first course, since I was so new to this world of like online courses, I tried to do that, and it is effective, but it's exhausting. And so in this case, I wanted it to be much more just like, I even like kind of took a lot of that stuff down and just made the course like, here's the course, here's what it is. If you like it, you should buy it. If not, you probably shouldn't. That's my sales pitch. And doing this from the ground up that way of like, this is how it's going to be. Also knowing that it's being made to be updated, because I'm always learning more about Final Cut Pro. So, in a few months, I'm going to know how to do things differently. Every time I learn how to do something, or I realize like, oh shoot, I didn't really touch on this because the project we're made in the course didn't use that feature, but that's an important one. I can just keep adding to the course. So I didn't feel stuck in like, oh my God, this has to be absolutely perfect from the start. It's like, this has to be as good as I can possibly make it right now. And then I will continue making it better over time. And I think that freed me up to be much more comfortable making it, have a lot more fun making it, and be more confident in it. And the feedback has been great so far. It's already in the month, less than a month that it's been available. It's already almost outsold the course that has been available for a year and a half, which is like amazing. I'm also very glad that I was able to release it before I got sick with COVID and couldn't do anything for like 3 weeks, because that kind of helped keep things going, keep things afloat for a while. So that has been absolutely amazing. I want to give you some insight into behind that. I promise it's not a sales pitch, but it also is. No, I'm kidding. Since there's going to be a break between episodes and we aren't going to get to have our weekly podcasts, if you think the course is right for you, only if you want to learn Final Cut Pro and you like the way I do it, I did want to put a coupon code that I'm not putting anywhere else, just right here in the episode. I'm not putting it in the description or anything. So from now till the end of January, basically on the hiatus between seasons, if you want to try out my course, Rough Cut to Final Cut, you can sign up at learnfinalcutpro.com and use promo code SECRET for 10% off. So if you just type in SECRET, you'll get 10% off between now and January 31st. I know it sounds fun to go like, oh, do crazy discounts and stuff, but like the course is put a lot of work in the course. I don't want to just discount it and put it in the bargain bin. Like it's actually very valuable, and it's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to me. The hours of production were insane, but also the time of, once I really decided to put my foot on the pedal and go with it, things moved relatively quickly, but the basic planning took like over a year for the course. So that's kind of the same with all my courses. Every once in a while, I like to be able to do, like if the price is a little bit out of your price, it's $300, by the way. So 10% off of that is math less than that. It's a pretty decent discount of $300. But if the price is just a little out of range, and like this is a little thing that just helps you decide, okay, yeah, I'll do it. Great. But again, I worked really hard on these, and I think that they're very, very valuable, and I don't want to put them in the bargain bin. And I also don't think that that's fair to people who have invested in the courses previously. So, they try to keep all of those things in mind when something comes out. So that's why I'm not putting this anywhere else, not a big sales pitch, but if I talked about the course, it sounds interesting, you can go to learnfinalcutpro.com and then use promo code SECRET between now and January 31st, 2023, because I guess you could be listening to this anytime in the future, but before January 31st, 2023, and you get 10% off if you want. So, also, speaking of promo codes, as we're wrapping up, I do want to one last time thank the sponsor of this episode and this season, Riverside.fm, because they are also super generous. And if you would like to do remote podcasting and remote, recording with people, you can go to Riverside.fm. You can use the link in the description and use promo code TOM15 for 15% off. They outdid me with the percentage there. So I really appreciate Riverside sponsoring this season. They're the first and only sponsor this podcast has ever had. And it was really great, kind of like with Sennheiser, to sit down and sort of like pitch a different idea to somebody and have them be on board with it and be supportive of it was awesome. And so I really appreciate Riverside's support and openness and kindness for this entire season. So thank you so much, Riverside, for sponsoring this season and this episode. It's been pretty darn awesome. I was planning to have several guests on in the second half of this season, and we could really showcase, like, hey, this is why Riverside's great, because it actually works really well. But between getting sick and then scheduling stuff, it just didn't work out. So hopefully next season be able to have some guests on. But life happens, as they say. Wow, way over an hour today. It's the camera bag thing. I don't know. I need to make like a 90-minute video about camera bags and just get it out of my system. But anyway, I appreciate you listening. If you're still here, thank you for listening to the very end of the season. I'll be back the first Monday of February, which I guess I could just look up what that is right now. A prepared podcast host would have done that first and then edited this part out. But not me. That would be February 6th. February 6th, 2023, season 9. It'll be divine. All right, I don't know. It's the same rhymes every time, same numbers every time. But anyway, thank you so much for listening. I appreciate it. It's insane to think how many episodes we've gone through, how many seasons we've gone through. January will mark the 4-year anniversary of this podcast, which is so exciting. It's been a great thing. If you've been thinking we're heading into a new year, we're heading into a hiatus. If you've been thinking of starting a podcast or something, whether it's video or audio only, whatever you prefer, but you haven't done so yet, I definitely encourage you to get started and try it out. There are so many tools out there. You don't have to buy my courses or anything. There are all kinds of free tools out there, platforms like Anchor if you want to get started for free, and just using whatever gear you have just to try it out. I think it's important to remind people too that when it comes to anything like that, YouTube, podcasts, whatever, you don't have to upload and publish everything you record, especially when you're just starting. It can feel so intimidating and awkward and scary. If you just sort of sit down and record something and get the reps in and try editing it, see how that feels, you don't have to share that with anyone. No one else ever has to see it. You don't have to put that pressure on yourself. But typically, by the time you're done with something, you hopefully feel good about it. You're like, actually, I do want to share this. But sometimes that holds people back, the idea of I can't get started because I'm nervous and I don't know what I'm doing and all this stuff. Don't feel like you actually have to. It's not a waste of time. If you make something, you record yourself, you even spend time editing it, and then you decide, nope, I don't like that, or I want to redo it differently, or I don't want to do it. That's not wasted time. You'll probably learn something. You'll probably have some kind of fun. And at the end of it, you'll either know that it is something you want to do or it's not something you want to do, which is very valuable information to have. It's an important thing to discover. So it's not wasted at all, and it's really fun. And I definitely encourage you. My only regret with any of this stuff, as I've said many times, is not starting sooner. So if you have that thought and you're having those, if just having those thoughts, I definitely encourage you to go for it and don't put any pressure on yourself. Just have fun, explore it, see where it goes. So thank you again so much for listening. Thank you again to Riverside. I appreciate it. If you want to reach out anytime during the hiatus, feel free. You can leave voice messages at himynameistom.com. Send me an email, send me a direct message, whatever you need. And I appreciate you listening. So I hope you have a safe, happy, healthy, fun rest of your year and a very, very safe, happy, healthy, fun new year as well.